The main event today is going to be the latest of Keith's relaunches, I guess.
The lamestream media's latest failing attempt to resuscitate the dying leadership of Sir Keith Rodney the Sad Donkey Starmer, QC.
Yeah.
Doesn't like the name Rodney, we've learned.
That's an obvious false flag, though, isn't it? You know. Oh, are there any names, Sir Keir, that you don't like being called? I hear you don't like being called Rodney. Yes, I really hate being called Rodney. Please don't call me Rodney.
Yeah,
they're just trying to divert us to something that annoys them a bit less than getting called Keith.
I was so upset listening to that one episode of Real Politik called Rodney the Sad Donkey. It cut me to the bone.
Yeah, because you'd very rarely see anyone call him Rodney, apart from us that one time. We've not even made it stick. I've not even run the joke into the ground, really. I've maybe brought it back a couple of times when the occasion befits it, but yeah, no, I mean, I think
He's
you're
not
right.
even the funniest right-wing rodders that there is on Twitter.
Friend of the show, mutual. I mean, I say mutual. I can't remember if I actually followed him back, but shout out to Rodders if he's listening. We're talking, of course, today about Sir Keir Starmer's appearance on Piers Morgan's Life Stories on ITV, which is a sort of set-piece 45-minute interview. Apparently the whole thing was 3 hours, which imagine how fucking excruciating that was being that's the length of a Grateful Dead show. 3 hours and no drum space. Come on, man. This was all the substantial political stuff in the 2 hours and 15 minutes that didn't make the cut.
Yeah, there was a good hour and a half of just hard policy that they hated ITV cruelly, against Keir's wishes.
Yeah, all his many policies and his values that those closest to him struggle to name. I mean, are you a fan, Geraint, of Piers Morgan's Life Stories? Have you watched this show before?
I think I caught about 10 minutes of it once when it started a few years ago and had to turn off because I just viscerally hate Piers Morgan.
Obviously, yeah, he's a massive arsehole, and the format is terrible too. It's the most lightweight, fluffy, fucking soft soap, puff piece shit imaginable.
Yeah, it's like a sort of caricature ITV's current affairs programming of it being it's terrible.
Peston's fucking show, which is just absolute dog shit for
Peston,
idiots.
who had obviously several cameos on this fucking piece of shit.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I want to sort of tell a defining Piers Morgan story because everyone hates him and everyone has their own reason for hating him, and the main ones that come up are he's really obnoxious, the phone hacking thing, him sort of becoming one of the most prominent Iraq war critics and torpedoing the whole thing by falling for sort of doctored photos and things like that.
God, yeah.
But the thing I think that just speaks volumes about his character and both tells you a lot about the British press and the state of the British media that someone like him can try and rehabilitate himself as a cuddly daytime TV guy. He came up through the Sun's entertainment showbiz desk. And you're thinking that's one of the least harmful things you can do at the Sun, I suppose, if you're just doing celebrity gossip. But
not at the Sun. They're fucking evil.
Genuinely not at the Sun. They're proper evil. But there might be that perception for a few people. Obviously, the Sun is a sister paper of the Times, both owned by Rupert Murdoch, but we hear constantly that they're completely separate enterprises.
Q, they own the media.
No crossover.
That's who that song was about. If we have time, we'll get to a Spectator piece on that subject.
Definitely who that song's about, yeah. But obviously they're completely separate. One's a respectable broadsheet. The singer Holly Johnson, best known for Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Relax and Two Tribes and all that. He was an out gay man in the 80s when that wasn't really something the tabloids liked, shall we say, up until well into the early mid-90s. And he had been, was he HIV positive at this stage, I think? And he decided that he was going to give an interview to talk about it, to try and sort of destigmatize the condition and so on. And he and his people sort of negotiated and they managed to get an agreement with the Times that they'd do this interview with the Times, and the Times would cover it
Oh,
sensitively.
the Times,
in
famous
their lifestyle. No, the
for
Times.
their treatment, their delicate and factually accurate treatment of the AIDS crisis.
Yeah, well, exactly. But this was after Andrew Neil's time there, I believe.
Okay, the new Times, new Labour, new Times.
By the time this happened, it was like 1990, early 90s, I think. It was after the absolute worst of what the Times was doing, and that sort of towards the end of the really bad era when the tabloids were just like openly, daily homophobic. But so he gives this interview and talks about it and what it means for him, and how he feels about it, and so on. And it was going to be in their sort of lifestyle supplement, where it's well away from like their headbanger comment writers, which has probably been a constant thing. Except before that was scheduled to like drop, I think it might have been the Sunday Times he'd done it for, the big weekend supplement and all this. A day or two before that, suddenly the Sun was splashing on it, and it was like, weird gay pop star has AIDS and all, like the absolute nightmare sensationalist two-footed character assassination because the guy's got an illness. Basically turned out that sort of transcript of the interview and the tapes of the interview had suddenly somehow found their way from Times offices to Sun offices in the same building, and found their way onto the desk of one Piers Morgan, who decided to run just a pure homophobic attack on the guy.
It speaks to the kind of diversity of the Murdoch press, in one paper you have the interview, we're going to profile you, we're going to be sensitive, we're going to treat the issue with the seriousness befitting it. And the other is just like the Sun. They're just like, you're gay. That's
the paper with the right-wingers who happily invite gay people to their dinner parties versus the paper full of right-wingers who wouldn't invite them to their dinner parties. That's the substantive difference between the Times and the Sun, I think. This was good for Morgan's career, that was something for his portfolio that helped his meteoric rise to becoming an editor when he was still very young.
A sort of like real
just a scoop,
and almost like he's had so many comebacks at this point, despite like the other day it feels like getting booted off Good Morning Britain for being racist, basically. Like,
yeah. Of course, his latest grift, literally about 2 days before this aired, is he's basically doing the exact same shit he aims at Meghan Markle every few days against Naomi Osaka, the female tennis player, because she's depressed.
I hadn't been following that, but he's nonetheless kind of still, despite all these tribulations he's had to endure as a consequence of his own ridiculous actions, like recently with Good Morning Britain, he's still this kind of flagship figure. We mentioned, like, the Sunday Times, like this kind of...
These are all career decisions, he's gone in on wokery and so on. It's his latest grift.
He's one of Britain's flagship broadcasters, much like, as we mentioned, the Sunday Times and their handling of the AIDS crisis. Andrew Neil, just somebody who just seems to, like, survive anything, because I guess there's just something rotten at the core of this fucking country and its press. But anyway, yeah, that's a bit on Piers Morgan.
I think with Andrew Neil, we know exactly what's rotten at the core there. There's a book that famously documents it.
Yeah, we've seen him in the swimsuit. We know all about Andrew Neil.
Yeah.
But I would say that probably the first actual times I remember hearing about Piers Morgan, there's a couple of things. Firstly, it was, you'd see Have I Got News For You on TV. And I had a sort of interest in comedy, and, I didn't have such discerning taste back then. So, read about Ian Hislop and, learn, maybe pick up a couple of copies of Private Eye and learn that Ian Hislop always referred to Piers Morgan as Piers Moron. And then, of course, there was the occasion which another luminary of British broadcasting, Amazon's Jeremy Clarkson, punched Piers Morgan, which, remains to this day one of the few excusable things that he's done in his life. But
critical support for Mr. Quadruple Denim.
Yeah, I would say that the only time that I've actually watched this current Morgan joint life stories would be when he had Mickey Rourke on, and which Mickey Rourke has had a fascinating life story. Yeah. This was from around the time of The Wrestler, his big comeback. They talked a lot.
The film itself was quite analogous to his own career as well, you know?
Yeah, a lot of kind of quite mean questions, just like, so yeah, you know, you obviously aren't as good looking as you used to be, are you, Mickey? Like, do you regret all the plastic surgery you've had? I don't know. It was like, there was a lot of stuff like that, and also just this like tedious hand-wringing about his support for the IRA in the 80s. they got on all these fucking nerds to just be like, yeah, well, I think that it was a case of a Hollywood actor weighing in on something that he wasn't sufficiently educated in. I myself fully appraised of the facts, which is why I attend the Orange Parade every fucking year. That episode did not leave me with an urge to watch more Piers Morgan's life stories. It was literally because YouTube just threw it up. I was susceptible. I was like, I kind of want to learn a bit about Mickey Rourke. And one of the things that struck me watching Piers Morgan's life stories featuring Keir Starmer was that there was this strange orangey hue to both of them. Bizarre fucking lighting to the extent that Mickey Rourke actually looked more normal in his episode than either of them did in this one.
The editing of it was bizarre. It was very, very fast-paced and just not giving anything any time whatsoever, because the amount of like just pointless video packages they had in as well. Although I think they've used the video packages to sort of subtly spin it against Starmer in some ways, which is
Tom Newton Dunn providing
both quite funny but also not funny given the way they've done it. You know, you'll ask Starmer quite a detailed question, be it personal, be it political, whatever, and Starmer will, for a lot, apart from a couple of his like heartbreaking personal anecdotes, he'd give a bit of an answer. He'd give like the first part of an answer, have a bit of a joke about it, and then they'd cut away, like, at the point you'd expect, right, and here's a substantial answer, you know? And they'd cut, right, here's another completely unrelated question as well, you know? He'd tell a story about something difficult in his personal life, and then they'll cut straight away to, like, oh, Labour's shit now, isn't it? Or he'll be talking about some of his early political activism or what have you, and then they'll cut away to, like, you know, oh, your dog died, didn't it? It was a shame, wasn't it? You know, just bizarre, like, all over the shop.
Sorry, not to laugh at the death of the dog, but I don't know. I feel like there could be a whole like genre of Starmer dog truther ism like that maybe some of us could get into over the coming days of his leadership. You know, I don't want to.
I mean, it's almost inevitable we'll see that play out on the timeline in the next week or so.
I don't want to overestimate how
the shit
long
posters are hogs.
Going to stay in post. They're hogs and dogs. Never mind. Let's leave it. It was the dog, something, dog Ian Austin disposing of evidence. The substance of the show, obviously, yeah, it was so fastly cut, so like bish bash bosh. It reminded me of like when we were recording all these like 3-hour episodes like a couple of years ago, and I was like just literally not letting anyone like breathe in the edit because I was just trying to compress it all so much so that it was like slightly less.
Something someone might actually want to listen to all the way through.
Yeah. Like Alex Nuns messaged me afterwards, like, yeah, I enjoyed it, but I don't remember speaking that quickly. he did his episode.
We mentioned briefly the sort of video packages there, but it's quite revealing the people they've got on, because, like, they got a couple of people just sort of from his life, you know. They obviously had his wife there, like in the studio with him.
His good friend Carolyn Harris, who he forced to resign recently.
They had the disgraced Carolyn Harris talking absolute shit.
Who certain Westminster insiders are saying did not, in fact, as the Starmer team briefed, spread scurrilous rumours about Angela Rayner, but was made to take the fall. That could be bullshit, though. She could well have done it. I don't know.
I mean, she's got a history history of that sort of stuff. So it's like, even if she didn't, it's going to be easy to make a stick on her.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past Team Starmer. I wouldn't put it past her. But anyway, she was on. I can't remember when did they. I swear they actually filmed this like fairly recently. So I'm not sure. It was post reshuffle, wasn't it? Because this
was it about a fortnight ago or something. I'm just thinking from when we saw it on, all the trails of it on the timeline. It recorded 3 hours of humanising beauty and stuff.
It was definitely post reshuffle because, like we said, this is like the lamestream media throwing him a bone or throwing him a life raft. Just like, here you go, Keir, come on, do this, and his desperate team are just like, oh, okay, anything. Yeah, exactly. And there's some other shit that he's doing as well that's similar. Something he's going on. I can't remember what exactly. But
Carolyn Harris did get one absolute belter of a line in saying it can't have been easy for Keir being the only man in the leadership contest.
# men's rights. Thank you, Carolyn. Dudes rock, and it's good that someone
Isn't it about time Labour elected a man?
Yeah, I felt represented when she said that, as I did when Sir Keir Starmer ran for leader, who I voted for. No, I did not vote for Keir. That would be like the ultimate heel turn if I was like, the reason that I dislike him so much is that I voted for him and I feel cheated. No, I was not. I did not get got by the Starmer con. But if any of you did, we may rib you a bit, but come on board. If you say enough terrible things about him, then I will forgive you. But
the main two political experts they kept going back to in the video packages and comment bits and stuff like that as well.
Giant.
There was one, Robert Peston. He is like ITV's flagship guy, so you can see like why that happened.
Fucking idiot, cretin.
He is basically. He's basically just a fucking idiot,
Terrible fucking new haircut.
He's like, I guarantee you'll get nothing of substance. And then the other one they used, out of all the people they could have chosen, Tom Newton Dunn.
Oh, well, it's good for Labour MPs, like to consort with Tom Newton Dunn these days.
Yeah, you've got to have the fascist opinion represented on your flagship show somewhere.
Yeah. Longtime Sun editor, just for anyone not familiar with him. Not anymore, but he did in one of, I believe, the last major things he did at the Sun in 2019, published this kind of like, it was like one of the, it was like Charlie's Wall in that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia sort of meme where he's got all the mad shit and it's like a spider diagram and it's got like, here's the one person pulling the strings and here's the other, and it was like that for the left. It was like,
it was some right-wing cranks publishing a hit list.
It was sourced like, basically it first appeared on like a neo-Nazi website.
They tried to push it every 6 months or so for about 2 years.
Yeah.
As an Corbyn's web of influence sort of thing.
And look, that's like one of many terrible things he's done. Like, this guy was like a long-time Sun stalwart. Like,
the guy got absolutely hammered in a workplace tribunal for like bullying women in the workplace years and years ago.
I didn't know.
He would just like steal their work as his own, and properly sort of shout and intimidate them and stuff like that. He pops up in Private Eye now and again, just like being abusive to like people working in the parliamentary canteen for like being too slow serving him his foie gras or whatever. Just an absolute prick of a man. He long blocked me before the fascist hit list thing on Twitter, just because I kept sort of popping up in his mentions with links about like the workplace tribunal where he was bullied.
But there is one more luminary who appears as a talking head, and possibly the best. We've saved the best for last here. Mr. Is he Sir? He's Lord, isn't he? Of course, Lord Kinnock. Neil Kinnock, the former leader of the Labour Party, former fucking Brussels bureaucrat, general all-round piece of shit. I mean, like, Neil Kinnock was just there. It's funny, isn't it? Like, how he's out there, like, just supporting the Labour leader in the media after taking any opportunity to just shit on the last one, because I guess he felt his legacy was threatened if a project of modernising the party in a leftward direction succeeded. That might, maybe make some people think that he didn't need to make the party, strip away everything the party stood for so much. back when he was leader. But anyway, Neil Kinnock's here.
He doesn't look well, does he?
Death's fucking door. I mean, like, Jesus Christ, man. I wish Neil a speedy recovery. Yeah, for sure. That definitely was not one of... hang on, I'm trying to think how I can say this with sufficient irony and plausible deniability. Well, anyway, I have a theory. So, Neil Kinnock's voice. Yeah, we saw him in the Labour The Summer That Changed Everything documentary with his son Stephen a few years ago, 2017. He was, he seemed quite sprightly. He was in full voice, He was, what was it he said? Well, we had all those common sense Labour policies, when he was trying to, wonder why Corbyn hadn't, just destroyed the party as he'd expected. And then, I don't know, my theory is that by now he's like, the modernising project. It started in 2016 when he did that speech to the Parliamentary Labour Party where he was just screaming at the top of his voice, the trots, just stamping his feet, and all the people were just in the audience. They were not this old man requires help, let's get him a cup of Horlicks and put him to bed. They were stamping their feet as well, this is incredible. I feel like it is the 80s right now. God knows why you'd want to be a Labour politician in the 80s, but all these people fucking live to cosplay as one. Anyway, so Neil Kinnock actually was a Labour politician in the 80s, and yeah, my theory is he just he destroyed himself with that, I won't say powerful, but unhinged, spittle-flecked 10-minute or so oratory to the Parliamentary Labour Party in 2016, and it's all been downhill. I don't know if there's much to say about him other than that, because he didn't say much of interest.
No, it's just the usual shit. Yeah, nothing of substance.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe Neil Kinnock would be a Kissinger type. We'll see him looking even more diminished in a couple of years, but he'll still be there accepting the opportunity to stick it to the trots on TV.
You'll notice though, we'll come to it later, but Morgan and the programme in general avoided what we would probably see, and what increasingly it looks like the electorate see as the faults with Starmer. What are your policies? Why are you focusing obsessively on punching left and so on and so forth? It avoided them, but with the video package about his work at Director of Public Prosecutions, which probably made sense to do a video package on, because do people know what that involves and so on, made absolute certain to both link him to the Spy Cops thing, but also to Jimmy Savile.
I laughed so much when Jimmy Savile appeared.
That's what you get when you've got was one of your main political voices on the show as Tom Newton Dunn.
Yeah, it was literally a sun spread, wasn't it? It was just a big picture of Jimmy Savile in the middle of just did the Director of Public Prosecutions let nonsense off the hook?
The Labour right still don't see that this is going to be the main attack line for Keir Starmer if he's ever in charge for a general election. They don't see it coming. It's going to be that, and even more so, it's going to be War Boys.
Well, that's probably why they're trying to overcompensate. Leader. So they're just we're going to put pedos in prison for life or whatever. They're really getting I think it's fair to say Labour did not they didn't not just not get on board with abolish the police or prisons or whatever, which is to be expected, but they were not influenced in the slightest by those ideas, and so I think they're trying to counteract this Starmer wants to let the likes of Savile fucking run the country.
But
Starmer... we're going to put people in prison forever. Yeah. We're going to keep their corpses in prison indefinitely, just piling up in the cells. We're going to charge
their families for the privilege. Yeah. But when Starmer first became leader, his personal polling was quite good, and there were also a lot of people that didn't really know him, didn't really have an opinion on him. When there's a blank slate and there's a chance to give a positive impression of yourself. Anecdotally, there was a lot going round on like WhatsApp and things like that, going viral, that was specifically, the attack line of the far right against him, the sort of Labour cultural Marxist sort of nonsense. The attack line against Starmer that they were really focusing on was his links to Savile, his links to various other
strong links,
celebrity nonsense murderers, basically. This was spreading like wildfire, and this was a lot of people's first impressions of the man. That died down a little bit, I guess, when COVID started dominating the news cycle. But we're 18 months on, and I don't think his office have any sort of strategy to deal with that at all. And it is going to be a big thing if he ever reaches an election. Like, they're just going to absolutely slaughter him. They've got, in tabloid ease, some of the best attack lines they've ever had on any political candidate ever, in terms of will they play with their readership.
Yeah, I mean, in addition...
Starmer's just like, I feel pride in my country, as if that's going to balance it out.
In addition
saying,
to just like...
I like the flag.
Every fucking thing about him and the party at the moment just literally projecting, for want of a better word, like London metropolitan elite. Like liberal elite, even, like, it's just it's like the selection in Batley and Spen of Joe Cox's sister, Kim Ledbetter, not to be confused with Huddy Leadbelly Ledbetter, the influential blues artist.
Jack, I don't think anyone's confusing them.
Well, speak for yourself. But, she's sort of like, obviously, the sister of a well-known person who died tragically. Her background is all just like classic, like worked a bit as a journalist, like ran the Joe Cox, More in Common, whatever, NGO. Is there a foundation that's a different thing to the More in Common NGO? There's a lot of that. Anyway, the point is that an NGO background, and so just like all those things combined, plus not even a Labour member in the Corbyn years, saw no like radical potential in a genuine challenge to neoliberalism, joined the party like a month ago or something.
She's not going to be as toxic to their chances inherently as like Saudi Paul was.
Oh no, of course not. He was a uniquely terrible candidate, and I think she is from Batley and Spen. That's something else going for her that Paul didn't have.
At least within like walking distance of it or something.
It's always playing with the boundaries a bit. MPs in terms of saying where they're from. What they represent.
The two of them combined, the two by-elections combined, you can't really get a sort of clearer picture of like basically extremely centralised power in the party to within like, a few people, basically hand-picking the candidates and like, no, we know better than the locals and so on. Maybe in this one they would have selected her anyway.
But she was the choice of the leadership. Shortlist. She was absolutely. I bet it was a short list of just like, they're like, look, so those people are on the list. Yeah. But they're not really on the list.
Ultimately, if your party is like, right, it's Starmer and David Evans and a couple of his closest advisors making all the decisions without consulting with members, with local parties, with anything like that, you better fucking get it right, because if you don't, you're not only going to lose, you're going to lose in a way that specifically makes you look much more out of touch than if you'd stayed out of it completely.
Yeah, absolutely. But in addition to this image, which, is going to be a sore spot for them, like that Starmer both projects himself consummately and that the party is projecting in a major way at the moment. The other thing, that links the selection of Kim Ledbetter and Batley and Spen and Starmer in this interview is just all that they've fucking got left in the tank at the moment is just this like mawkish appeal to sentimentality, emotional manipulation. Effectively, there's so much in this stuff just about all the like tragic shit in Keir's life, and it's like you get any person up there and they have tragic shit that they can talk about, especially someone who, like Starmer, is like 60 years old. You're gonna have witnessed a lot of suffering in 60 years. I'm sorry, that's not a callous comment about him being old or whatever. Obviously I'm a strong supporter of Jeremy Corbyn, who's older, but like, you know, anyone who is gonna, you know, you can literally just probe into, so like, what members of your family have died, and that you're going to get some sob stories. And I
think, the thing with the sort of sad anecdotes, if you like, is that they were potentially quite relatable, and he wasn't really doing much to actually drive home why that's important to him as a politician. It was very much, this sad thing happened, you know, I basically had to watch my mum slowly die. I was distant from my father. I had this tragedy happen to me, and so on. And these are things that a lot of the people watching will have either had happen to them, or had happened to one of their friends, or a distant family member, or something. And at no point is he like, and you know, this is what's inspired me to get into politics, to try and change and provide extra support and so on. It's just this happened to me. It was sad. I'm sad, you know?
It's like, and I learned a valuable lesson from this, which is that people should stop being mean to me, and bad things should stop happening to me, because I don't like it.
Ultimately, like, people even who aren't politically political but are maybe watching that will be like, well, you are the leader of the Labour Party. What would you actually be doing about these issues, you know? People aren't as stupid as Keir Starmer and his cheerleaders think they are. And the fact that they think they are comes across aggressively in like the entire sort of public-facing Labour presentation at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got one joke, but just reading it back, I'm like, I probably shouldn't make that, because it's making a dumb classic rock pun about Still's disease, which I'm sure is a very serious condition. But if you're
probably don't do that.
If you're familiar with Stephen Stills, then you can DIY, like, build your own joke out of like the components there, knowing elements of his personality. But yes. So let's talk about the reaction to this, because like for me, this fucking shit was like the most unpleasant like 45 minutes of television I've ever seen. Like, it was like watching, you know, if somebody took bits of a genuinely brilliant, masterful film, Pasolini's Salo, took them completely out of context, just got the bits where people are eating shit and slowed them down and zoomed in on the shit going into their mouths and like stretched it to 45 minutes. Salo, the shit cut. Like, that was what this was like for me. But all the people in the British press are saying, oh, it's fantastic, he came across as a bloody great bloke. Like, obviously the edict has gone down from on high. You got to call him a bloke.
The instant reaction was quite interesting. Obviously, the Mirror are probably the most sympathetic tabloid to Labour and to
Piers Morgan,
sort of
possibly.
Maybe not anymore. It's probably cost them a hell of a lot in legal fees. I actually have a relative.
He's worked for like every fucking place in the country.
Yeah, I have a relative who actually worked for some time in the Mirror Group's legal department, and I don't think they like Piers Morgan much at all.
All right.
But yeah, you know, they're the ones you'd think that would be a real sort of can't miss, right? You know, we're trying to connect with people who aren't super political. That would be the paper most likely to give us a good hearing based off something like this. Within minutes of the programme finishing, they're obviously waiting for it to have actually broadcast. Their headline scoop of it was, Keir Starmer's home burnt down with dog inside while dad was dying in hospital. That was the takeaway, you know?
Quite tragicomic when you put it like that.
Yeah.
Makes him sound very
with
hard
a picture
done by...
with a photo of him looking sheepish attached to the tweet, like, in case you thought they were doing it sympathetically. But I mean, the reaction since, I don't know if you've seen it. There's an Evening Standard article come out today.
Oh,
with, long-term friend of the show, Aisha Hazarika. titled Starmer's Piers Morgan interview showed him as warm, open and decent. And the pull quote from it is, if last night's aim was to show people that the Labour leader is a decent, normal bloke who loved his mum.
Klaxon.
Who loved his mum, loves his wife, and really loves football. Job done.
Yeah, but
basically,
I tuned that shit out, to be honest, but yeah.
Basically, they've finally got their parallel timeline where Owen Smith won. Very normal bloke, loves sport and tea and beer and that's what people like, isn't it?
That was so loads of stuff in loads of fucking stuff in the interview about his rock solid marriage with his wife. They brought her out. There was like, actually, if anything, we've got closer. Like, yeah, I didn't see Jenny Chapman interviewed, by the way, in the Talking Heads. I guess she was busy. That's why they had to be like, Carolyn, sorry, I know we sacked you yesterday, but can you come back?
It's probably, I'm not going to dwell on it too much because I know that, as well as maybe some of our listeners, also yourself, don't follow or care about football at all. But obviously they kept playing up that he loves football. Not so much in this case that he's like an Arsenal fan, but like, he loves playing football, and some of the childhood photos they'd found of him, or him as a teenager, were like him in what looked like a school football team sort of thing and all this, But he loves football, this guy.
Oh, yeah.
But like, the thing is, as a fairly obsessive football fan, obviously quite a lot of left Twitter are as well, like, Starmer doesn't come across as one. Like, looking at that sort of stuff there and some of the things people say about him, the fact that he bothers to play every week, like, even with the job he's got now, he probably does really like football, right? But he comes across like sort of your David Cameron and Tony Blair types who have been like, oh yes, I bloody love the football, me. Go the England. Really obvious sort of basically focus grouped. I am a normal person swing. It doesn't convince anyone.
Maybe it's just
he puts out the sort of tweets that, so
even when he believes something, he can't communicate it to anyone. It seems insincere.
Yeah. So there was a series of Fast Show sketches where like an Arsenal fan, but he was like a new football fan who just got into football because it was trendy now, and he was sort of going to the games and didn't have a clue and was asking stupid questions of the people around him, to their great annoyance, because he was just there to be seen to be at the game, and he comes across like that, but he's been playing football all his life, like he's actually going out of his way to sort of appear to be like, you're sort of dumb. Oh, I like it when all the English teams do well in Europe, guy. Which, like that's going to lose him support among football fans if there's any that are on the fence of him. That's going to make them see him much less as like a likable, relatable guy.
Maybe it's because Arsenal have been tarnished by Corbyn. He literally is so scared to be seen as like Corbyn in any way. I don't even think Corbyn was mentioned in this fucking interview.
He seems to be actually focus grouping content and statements to make about one of the main hobbies in his own life.
It's like me, like, okay, guys,
care a lot less about football to
please
tell him what to say about football.
Please, RP listeners, what is my favourite Bob Dylan album? I need to know so that I can triangulate our potential listenership.
It's like he's looked at Corbyn and he's looked at the eventual electoral failure of Corbynism in 2019 and the fact that he's very, very unpopular with the people he's unpopular with, and so on. And he looked at that and he thought,
paedophiles.
Why has this come about? It's because he cares about allotments and international politics and football and things like that. Because he speaks with passion about the causes. That's why people hate Corbyn. And I will never speak with passion about anything.
Maybe that is his passion. Maybe that is the thing that he feels passionately about. He just really hates when people are passionate about shit. He's like, calm down. Like, that's the only time he gets emotional about anything. Is just like, can you not moderate your emotions a bit? I mean, so some more quick reactions. I mean, you got from Patrick Maguire, who possibly because of his book about how Corbynism was colossally uniquely shit, a book that I will say, I enjoyed more than some. He says, host and guest succeed in drawing out the man, or more accurately, bloke, often described by people lying in order to keep a job. What? That's not what he said. He said friends, but seldom seen in public. And he said also more humane probing than spliffs and tears headlines may suggest. So Starmer's obviously asked about recreational drug use, because obviously he sent a lot of people to prison for it. And I believe that it's still Labour's policy under him that should continue. And a lot of people for some reason were interpreting the questions about Starmer's recreational drug use as being about spliffs. I couldn't quite work that one out, although I will say I wish I'd have had one of those before I watched this 45-minute thing. I was gonna watch it last night, but I'd already got well and stoned, and I was just kind of like, I kind of want to watch the Blues Brothers instead. So I only watched it today before I got zooted, and that was probably made me made my temperament worse, I'll say. But I'm trying to think, has anybody else called Starmer a bloke prominently?
I'm looking at one of the greatest ones to see if he's in this, but
Paul Waugh says it's the best mainstream primetime PR that Keir Starmer has ever had. He says he suspects a lot of the public will have seen what he's really like for the first time. And someone says, Twitter feedback appears overwhelmingly positive, apart from rather predictably the far left of his own party. And Paul Waugh says, I think he'll take that. It's like, yeah. It's probably just a side note. The issue of Starmer deciding to burn down his own party and completely abandon his initial pledge for party unity is briefly brought up by Piers Morgan, although not dwelt upon as nothing is in this rapid fire format. But Morgan is like, so you said when you became leader that you were going to unite the party. If anything, it seemed more divided than ever. What's that about, eh? And Starmer says, I have to address certain issues like anti-Semitism. And then that's it. Like, just because he says anti-Semitism,
said the
and
word,
it's
move
like,
on.
oh, right, okay, cool, right, sorted. Literally, it is just this, like, moral get-out clause for any fucking shit that he wants to do. It's, like, the most, like, foul, debased abuse of, like, a serious issue for political means, like, in our lifetimes. But, You're
talking about other reaction to it, right? Well, it's actually brought one of the big beasts of comment journalism back into the game. Mr. Just a few hours ago, this dropped in The Guardian. Mr. Jonathan Jones, the world's greatest art critic. And he's got the photo of, the sort of, Keir Starmer and some of his mates are students, and they kind of look like a vaguely new romantic band. The photo they showed in it.
A poor man's Tim Farron and the Voyeurs, aka Fred the Girl, if you ask me.
The vibe I get from it is fucking like Ricky Gervais's shit band that he was in. He's done a whole piece on that photo. Sweet, sincere and humanising. Could Keir Starmer's oh-so-serious student picture win votes? Well, no, it couldn't, but the Labour leader's portrait from his Leeds University days reveals a young man with a vision who might just appeal to that key electoral group, Joy Division dads.
A vision, a joy. You guys are listening to Joy Division, but me, I feel joy at Starmer's vision for the country.
Thanks, Jack.
Nailed it. Some more quick reactions. There was some shite from Chris Bryant, if you can pull that up. But
I just want to get to the key paragraph in this Jonathan Jones thing. He's going on and on about like what bands it evokes and so on.
Mr. like most famous for like the side-by-side tweet comparison of his like, it is wrong to enjoy Soviet art because it was created by suffering, and then his other one which is like, you know what, Hitler did some banging paintings, mate. Reifenstahl, greatest filmmaker of all time. Wagner, greatest classical composer. Like, no, that wasn't it. It was basically just like, it's okay to enjoy
like
fascist art.
being a cultural golden age or some grim shit. But yeah, so the conclusion he gets from his photos, the look in Starmer's eyes is sincere. While the other boy is lost in a gloomy reverie, the future politician has a fervent light in his eyes. He may be all too aware of his look and his looks, but he also projects a romantic dream of some kind, nay, a vision. Young Keir appears to believe in some big idea or better future. He can see it.
Well, yeah, not anymore. I mean, if that was when he was young, I mean, like, he went wrong somewhere. But yeah, the headline, could Keir Starmer's oh-so-serious student picture win votes? And I mean, if Jonathan Jones wasn't already among the converted, it sounds like it's 1-1. Some quick reactions. You got Lucy Powell MP, Labour MP, sort of from the party. She says, I thought Keir Starmer came across really well. Natural, at ease, someone of compassion, with a pretty amazing career, given his quite ordinary background too. He's from fucking Oxford.
Did he
Fuck
not,
off, ordinary
did he not
background.
Did he not promote her like a few weeks ago?
He did indeed, yes. His dad, the fucking tool factory impresario. His fucking ordinary background. I mean, one of the funniest things that Keir said actually was he summed up his 3 words that would define his Britain: pride, dignity, and change. Like dignity, something that's been sorely lacking, but I think that is kind of like
really
a
likes
Starmer
Deacon
thing.
Blue.
Yeah. Like I'm very dignified. I wear a suit and have Richard Spencer haircut, blah blah blah. I'm dignified. You're not. You're a dirty little trot. Like that's kind of his thing. But his dignity has, I think, been like falling apart recently with stunts like this and change. You know, but he's really got into just like throwing around the word change as if Change UK never happened, you know, just like here and there, put a fucking hashtag on it. Like, anyway, an account called Sandy Says Vote Conservative, Union Jack flag, the word Israel, then an Israeli flag, at Addict Scrabble. At the Politics for All account, which I've said before, I think is a very authoritative voice on the events of the day, with their own 3 Starmer keywords, which are hopelessness, anti-Semitism, and hindsight. And I would have to say, yes, Sandy Says Vote Conservative, flag of United Kingdom, Israel, flag of Israel. Sadly, I agree that Mr. Starmer is presiding over an institutionally anti-Semitic party who are unfit for government. And, you know, until this evil man is gone, this one specific individual who is a uniquely bad person, I think that there can be no change in this regard. Although if he is gone, then it will happen overnight. And it will be fine to support the party again. But another MP from the right of the party, Charlotte Nichols, says, by far the proudest moment of my life was my parents watching my maiden speech as the new Warrington North MP. Watching Keir Starmer's hashtag life stories, I wonder if the Whip's office had been like, you got to use the hashtag for maximum engagement, guys. It's much more moving than I anticipated, but I think his mum narrowly missing out on that was the bit that really got me. So, another one possibly not. Was she promoted
on the bright
recently?
side, like Keir Starmer's mum never saw him like get publicly exposed for race baiting. You know, so there's swings and roundabouts situation.
Yeah, did she live long enough to see him like
Nichols
sell out all his professed principles? Which to be fair, he'd already done that before he got into Parliament, rather than immediately upon doing so. So let's find what Chris Bryant said, because he's a major shithead on the right of the party who had a very obsequious take on this.
Surely not. Chris Bryant, a man so stupid that when I used the Wayne Rooney "Do you want picking up in the morning, pal" meme in response to him, he got very confused. And I was
sorry, I've already got a lift plan.
who I was and where I was proposing to pick him up from.
Okay, this one is a serious, like, real politic, a bit of RP bait, one could say, and it was in multiple ways. Okay, so he says, a lot of us have always known that Keir Starmer was a decent, honest man, full of the milk of human kindness. He's obviously run out of characters and had to spell human kindness as one word here, and passion for life and justice. Every interview he has done recently, including at Matt Ford and hashtag life stories, goes to prove UK would be safer in his hands. Including at Matt Ford. Just shout out your Blairite mate. Like, just throw in a gratuitous Ford name drop.
With his 2,000 book sales or whatever.
Shrieking Tin Man sent him that picture of Gapes just like melting in the sun. Black Lives Matter, I believe his name is Jack at JRC. I don't believe he's Black Lives Matter on his birth certificate. Yes. JRC 1921 says embarrassing weirdo, which is one of the top rated comments in the replies to this.
Evergreen with that guy.
Yeah, so generally, like, Chris Bryant getting some good... Ashok at Broseph Stalin simply replies with... milk.
It's catching on.
I think it caught on long ago. There's no going back now.
Yeah.
Gapes has finally left some kind of an impact on politics. It took him 30 years and literally not being a politician anymore, but he's done it. Any other major shit in this interview, or any other, like, particularly good responses? I mean, I don't fucking know half the people who've been with blue ticks who've just been, like, cropping up saying what an amazing interview it was and how he came across as, like, the greatest guy ever to live. Like, who the fuck is Sebastian Salek? Thought Starmer nailed it on life stories. Entertaining, engaging, and moving. Feels like the gamble paid off. I mean, yeah, that seems to be like what the line is, like, Rodney, make a big deal of the Rodney thing, distract from the Keith issue, where's the birth certificate, Keir? Bloke, that's part of it. The gamble paid off, like, he took a massive risk by doing this fucking, like, odious little, like, backslapping interview with one of the biggest pieces of shit in television.
Yeah. With Mr. Belter from Helen Pidd, you know, the friend of 20.
Oh, of course, yeah.
In an era of politics obsessed with relatability, Starmer despising his middle name puts him firmly in man of the people territory.
Almost everyone hates theirs, she says. Do you hate your middle name, Geraint?
No. My middle name is David, but at the same time, I'm glad it's not my name, because there was a goalkeeper called David James who was famous for his cartoonish blunders. So,
cartoonish
you know, that would have been...
It's like, that was very Keir.
Yeah.
Always getting into cartoonish blunders these days.
This is a guy who, like, had the worst form of his career when Liverpool were battling for the title once in 1997, and it was like, I was playing too much N64, mate, too much Mario Kart.
I have two middle names.
Quite relatable, really.
Yeah, I've got two. I've got Peter and much more relatable than Keir in any way. But yeah, I've got two middle names. There's Peter and Mark, both after uncles, one on my mum's side, one on my dad's side. And the only issue I really have with it is that two middle names and two fucking surnames.
Yeah, it's a lot of names altogether.
Exactly, like, yeah, that's it. And plus from the fact that, like, you know, my name is technically John, so, you know, like, write the full thing out. John, in quotation marks, Jack, Peter Mark Frayne Reed. Like,
there's lads in Brazil with one name, and you've got about 6 or 7 or some shit.
Like Pele.
Yeah, exactly. Think of poor starving Pele.
I know the name of a footballer, but so there's this whole article that Helen Head has written, like getting in a load of stuff about only fools and horses. This is just like, you know, sometimes a journalist will just, you can see they're having fun. And they've just been like, you know, they've always been a fan of Only Fools and Horses, for example, and this is their chance to just shoot for shit about a show they like for a couple of paragraphs.
She likes the racially dated episodes going off for her over
Rodney, you plonker, she quotes. Anyway, yeah, so now we found out that Keir Starmer is very relatable and we'll all be voting for him. We all have a very positive opinion of him now, watching that. We didn't before, obviously, but that has really converted us watching that interview.
The ratings have come out, and they seem to be not disastrous, but considerably less than the same episode of the same show that had Gemma Collins on it.
What else did Patrick Maguire say about that? He said Captain Tom got 2.89. Imagine how shit that would be. I mean, like, you talk about Neil Kinnock barely being like, I think it'll be word for word the same. Just Captain Tom just like, I like charity. I was surrounded by God. Like that would have been just absolute dog shit. With such a shit, like such a boring life as well. Like, you know, but barely even, not even a real soldier, stole valor, then like cheated on his wife, and that's like all I can think of that's interesting about.
Did Captain a lot of work Tom. At his local Conservative club. Like,
well, that doesn't surprise me. But anyway, let's, the point is, Captain Tom got 2.89 million.
The point is, most of the people watching the show with Keir Starmer are people that are already going to have a view on Keir Starmer, you know?
Yeah.
There's a third of the viewership of Coronation Street immediately before it, and there's not going to be a huge amount of overlap either. You can tell because the advertising profiles of the two shows were very different. So I sort of caught the last couple of minutes before the programme started.
Adverts, man.
You know, it's not going to... And all these articles saying, actually, he was great, isn't it brilliant? You know, how relatable was he? They're all in the broadsheet press. Again, if you subscribe to one of those or if you visit their websites every day... I do.
I think they're great. I follow them religiously.
I do that as well. It's definitely not just like a Chrome extension that gets me around every paywall on the planet. But, like... It's preaching to the converted, and half the converted have soured on the guy. At best...
The sour milk of human kindness.
The best impact this will have now is it will sort of shore up some wavering Starmer supporters for a little bit longer, you know? He was quite nice on that. I was wavering, but I want him to win. That's not going to move the dial in any meaningful way unless he starts getting everything else right, which is, you know, very unlikely. I said yesterday, like, if he'd done this like a month or two after becoming leader, it might have been a useful exercise at that point, because at that point a lot of people just didn't know him, didn't really have an opinion on him, and those that did were sort of quite favourably disposed to him, but maybe didn't know too much about the substance, or saw him as like sort of competent but boring. So maybe in that context, like, here's some stories about my life, might have been humanising. At this point, it's a year too late, and it's just going to do nothing for him whatsoever.
Yeah, because like people like us, who he's already made fucking hate him, we're just like, I don't care about your life, like, fuck you. Like, so yeah, because like, you know, we know about his tenure as DPP. We know about him suggesting that fucking like autistic kid should be extradited to the US for doing some hacking. Like, we know what a fucking monster this guy is on a more minor scale than that last thing. We've seen the way that he's just fucked over people like Corbyn or Rebecca Long-Bailey, just like who his friends a minute before that. We know that this guy is just like a psycho managerial, utterly professional, like robotic establishment suit, and he can protest. You know, he's cried wolf too much, basically, with just his insincere shite. That if he tries to, like, you know, even if he tries to communicate like something, I like football, I like my wife, whatever, it just comes across as like completely like performative. Another thing I just noticed, like browsing my Twitter profile to see what thoughts I
tweeted, because I was just like fucking fuming, typing this shit out. I didn't even bother to do a fucking. I did like a tweet like saying how much I hated it that had like 15 typos in it. I was just like absolutely just. Anyway, yeah, they said that his wife has to put up with a lot. Another thing that they said must have been a quote that somehow found its way to Piers Morgan. I don't know from whom, but I suspect perhaps one Tim Shipman. A question about whether or not Starmer is brimming with manly passion. So I think they were trying to, play a little bit on the Shagger Starmer Lothario kind of image that he's created for himself over the last couple of months.
Yeah.
Or earlier in his career, if you're to believe certain scurrilous rumours that are unverified as yet, but I have heard also found their way to Tim Shipman. He also, here's a quote, "I have been Keir for some time." Now, some might say that's just a self-deprecating thing. That's just it's a joke. That's clearly, someone saying, I have been, who I am, what my name is for some time is obviously has the structure of a joke. I disagree. I think that it's a smoking gun. I think that he is blowing the whistle, possibly inadvertently, on the fact that, the birth certificate that has never surfaced, in fact, says Keith, possibly even Rodney. Maybe they're hiding Keith. The conspiracy in plain sight.
It's a double cover up.
Exactly.
Keith's his middle name.
Yeah. That could well be it. Nothing is out of the question here. Then there's a little bit about how Starmer is mates with George Clooney, because obviously he was a peer in the legal community of Clooney's wife, Amal Clooney. I've forgotten her maiden name, but I believe she goes by Clooney now. Anyway, there is actually an anecdote about how a while back a TV or film crew wanted to do a documentary about Amal Clooney, pre-Clooney, and she wasn't interested. She was like, I don't know about it, but their chambers where they worked said, go to Keir Starmer, he'd be up for it. They went to Keir Starmer and they sounded him out and interviewed him. They were just like, this cunt is so fucking boring, but we're not going to do it. It's like a story about Mick Jagger wrote an autobiography in the 80s and it was rejected for just being a boring load of shite that you could tell was written by an accountancy student from LSE. That being Mick Jagger, not just a particularly ignominious ghostwriter. Just for some reason, he went to LSE, just like, hey, you random maths nerd, come and write my book. He was the nerd. But anyway, they basically talk about how Starmer has apparently had dinner with George Clooney, and they get into all this stuff. It's like when Springsteen and Obama were talking about these parties they've had where, there's almost certainly a big owl somewhere and, all this kind of stuff, and they're all wearing masks. And it's kind of like that. They're like, oh yeah, we've had, George really gets going. When George usually does most of the talking, and it doesn't, hearing that George Clooney is personal friends with Keir Starmer really doesn't surprise me as someone who has been severely disappointed in the downturn in Clooney's output in the last few years. I think he was really consistent as an actor and even as a sort of solidly mediocre director in the 2000s and maybe early 2010s. And then the last few years, maybe part of it is the changing climate of the film industry, there not being the kind of financing for the sort of films he wants to make. Maybe part of it is, the contentment of marriage. But I feel like Clooney has just he used to feel like a kind of left lib with certain strong principles and stuff. Now he just feels like a generic establishment liberal. He never ended up making his phone hacking scandal film because obviously I think he got fucked over by the news of the world in some way. And he really wanted to get back at them by adapting Nick Davis's Hack Attack, and that project never surfaced. And I think a lot of it was it fell apart in the after the Sony hack,
when Amy Pascal had to step
Right.
down as head
Yeah.
of Sony because she'd made all those racist jokes about
Extremely
Obama.
dodgy racist jokes, yeah.
But basically, Obama, incidentally, friend of George Clooney. But I don't know if Keir Starmer and him are on personal terms. I reckon Obama would still probably, do what he always does, call up the leader of a conservative party and say, I really hope you win the election. But basically, yeah. I think part of it was that, when a studio head leaves a studio, then certain projects always fall to the wayside. Part of it was that was a Pascal joint. But there were leaked emails, thanks to the Sony hack, in fact, that showed that Amy Pascal was really, and other executives at Sony, they were really worried that they were going to piss off Rupert Murdoch, and they were telling Clooney, don't go too hard at Rupert Murdoch. And he was literally, there was some email from him where he took a very admirable stance of I fucking hate Rupert Murdoch and I'll go as hard at him as I want. But that project never got made, and his last few films have been quite underwhelming, and he barely ever stars in any films. I loved him in Hail Caesar. I thought that was really funny. But anyway, this is just a long tangent about George Clooney. The point is that much like, I love Bruce Springsteen. I knew he was a liberal, but just the fact that he's so friendly with Obama just makes me just a little bit of respect for him kind of drop. It's just kind of like that with George Clooney. I'm okay, he's friends with Keir Starmer. Yeah, this all makes sense now. One more quote from it. There's a bit where they start a sentence. If you can't be a cop, the least you can do is be director of public prosecutions, be the leader of the Labour Party. I mean, endless ways you could finish that sentence. Okay, just one more obsequious client journalist. This is Paul Brand from ITV. He says, this is an incredible interview by Piers Morgan with Keir Starmer. Obviously, there's a bit of brand synergy here going on, a bit of corporate synergy. They're both ITV guys.
Yeah.
Keir Starmer breaking down in tears about the death of his mother with Stephen Still's disease, wishing he could have told her, I love you. Rare to see this raw emotion in a politician. And it's just kind of there's certain moments where, condemning Corbyn over anti-Semitism was one of these things, but where if your job is to be a reporter, you could take a political stance. In this, the political stance is just Keir Starmer's a great bloke, he's left a really great impression of me, but it wouldn't have been okay to really say that about Corbyn, No. When these reporters drop their sort of impartial voice and they let these, subjective opinions that they personally hold, it's always the most embarrassingly gushing, gullible expressions of deference to authority figures, Yep. It's if you ever suspected that these people, you talk to them one-on-one, they secretly might believe some interesting things. No, they don't. They don't have minds of their own. He continues, Paul Brand, you sense, given this interview was done after Labour's disastrous election result in May, that Starmer's team just told him to go for it. Let it all hang out. Well, he doesn't say that, but he says, be himself, wear his heart on his sleeve, high risk. We saw that elsewhere from someone else, didn't we? The gamble paid off, but with little to
risk,
lose. How the fuck was Piers Morgan just saying, so, you're a nice man, aren't you? You've endured human suffering. Yes, I have, Piers. Such
Sometimes I've even caused it off. You've ruined it, Keith.
He says high risk, but with little to lose. I think that's probably true. There was no way that fucking
Pain
Morgan
is a myth.
I mean, we've seen Morgan's interviews with Trump. There was no way he wasn't going to softball an interview with fucking Starmer. But perhaps it will only help the public to connect with him. Perhaps it will only do the express thing that it's designed to do. So basically, it's just saying strategic genius from Team Starmer really resonated with me personally. This is my objective journalistic report on these events, But it's just kind of when he says you sense that Starmer's team just told him to go for it, be himself, wear his heart on his sleeve, it just kind of feels like, well, that's what the briefing said anyway. That's what it said about the interview in the TV guide. That's what Piers Morgan tweeted in advance about it, It really did. You wouldn't need to watch it to say that. He could have just like looked at what other journalists were saying.
Yeah, it's just. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the press reaction to it, I think, would have been identical, regardless of how well or how badly the program actually went. You know, they'd almost got their lines beforehand.
I was pretty horrified by his attack on the free press, though. You know, when he was like, and that goes for all you punks in the press that want to start shit by printing lies instead of the things we said. That means you, Andy Setcher at Hit Parader, Circus Magazine, Mick Warlock-Rank. I don't even know if these people are alive. I don't know if these publications are still going, but he's clearly nursing a grievance.
Yeah.
Bob Guccione Jr. at Spin, what you pissed off because your dad gets more pussy than you. Oh, sorry, I misread that.
Maybe it dates back to
that said Hugo
days.
Rifkind, not Bob Guccione Jr. Fuck you, suck my fucking dick, you be ripping off the fucking kids while they be paying their hard-earned money to read about the bands they want to know about, printing lies, starting controversy. You want to antagonize me, motherfucker. Get in the ring, motherfucker, and I'll kick your bitch, you little ass. Punk. And then the most shocking bit of all is, in parentheses, guitar solo. That shook me to the core when he said that, to be honest. I don't know if democratic institutions would be safe under the rule of this man.
No, I think it's a chilling threat to one of the cornerstones of democracy.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was even more troubling, to be honest, when Morgan pressed him on his approach to criminal justice, and he said, torture, motherfucker. What? I'll fucking hang you by your fucking dick off the fucking 12-story building out this motherfucker. I'll fucking sew your asshole closed and keep feeding you. I mean, you know, I knew about his, arguable complicity in torture as director of public prosecution, but to hear him put in such plain terms, you know, was really something.
Yeah. It's finally setting out his policy stall.
Yeah. So yeah, that's been the Keir Starmer fucking life stories with Piers Morgan. I mean, if you were taken in by this shit, you're an absolute sap. You deserve to be conned out of all your money at the next opportunity by a wallet inspector.
Yep.
You know, be it whether it's Keir Starmer himself or some similar charlatan. Really, really unpleasant 45 minutes of television, I thought.
Yeah. Just it both seemed like it lasted about 10 minutes because there was no substance to it, and also seemed to drag on forever because it was fucking boring.
Oh yeah, it was so bad having to watch it on ITV Player.
Oh fuck, I know.
Like,
I've had to sort that out so I can get it ready for all the football that's going to be on in the next month. It's just an absolute shit of an app.
I did look. I looked on the torrent sites. Not on there. No one's in a rush to get that Keir Starmer life stories out there to the masses in a free, non-ad laced form.
Imagine if it was going viral on the torrent sites, how conflicted would Starmer be? Like, we're getting the message out, but it's illegal.
We need to arrest everybody who watched and especially enjoyed this interview with me.
Yeah, so I would say, as I said on Twitter, all I'm doing at this point is rehashing my tweets, but yeah, a loser enterprise, clearly, with no audience whatsoever.
Yeah.
Sad. Tragic. Well, you know, I think that's pretty much us. You know, I think we've said our bit on Keir Starmer's appearance on Piers Morgan's life stories.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, Blood Orange is from Ilford.
What?
You know the singer-songwriter Blood Orange.
Oh right, yeah.
Sort of, kind of. Some stuff more sort of alternative rock, some stuff more kind of R&B, and done some film scores under his own name and so on. Yeah, he's from Ilford.
That's a hell of a juxtaposition there. Do you reckon he's got views on Gapesy?
Have to reach out to him, get him on the show, get him to cameo in Gapecast as himself.
I know he's not a fan of The Guardian.
You're going to say, I know he's not a fan of the Gapecast. I was like, shit, what's he been saying? No.
They did a comment, this free thing that's like, his house burnt down and I don't care.
yeah, let's wrap this up then, and maybe we'll address some of the other pressing issues of recent days at a later date. Peace out.